Good morning, good afternoon, everybody, depending on the part of this great country that you're in. This is the Rebel News Daily live stream. I'm your host, Sheila Gunn Reid, and joining me today, it's been a while, my friend Alexa Lavoie. Alexa, how's it going?
I'm pretty good, and you, Sheila?
I'm doing well. You know, there's absolutely nothing to talk about today. Nothing happened yesterday in political
No.
news, so I don't even know what we're doing here today. I
Seriously,
know.
I swear to God, I almost fall asleep during the debate. I was like, that's the most boring one, but ah.
I was too busy laughing and being annoyed.
Yeah.
So it kept my interest engaged, although I quit paying attention to the debate and I was paying more attention to the moderator, Tom Clark, which is, I think, kind of what Tom Clark wanted. Because if you were in the room, you got the sense that it was the Tom Clark show and the debate was his vehicle to relevancy one more time.
I just tried to understand why you didn't want it, that nobody was clapping or shouting or anything. And I was almost have the impression that he was talking with children, like, don't do that or they will be punished. I was like, what's going on there? It's not supposed to be a debate.
Well, and I think, you know, he didn't want any shouting, not because he didn't want cheering. I think he was worried about the booing because this is Alberta. We don't like Jean Charest. We really don't. He's bad on all the things that Western Canada cares about: carbon taxes, gun rights. He's free speech. I think he's really bad on those issues. And the free press, given how he treated you. So I think the moderator knew there would be booing for some of the candidates, particularly Patrick Brown and Jean Charest. I just don't think he thought there would be booing for him, but there were several times during the debate where the audience actively booed the moderator, and people even got up and left. But I've got a lot to say because I was in the room. But before we get too far into that, I should tell everybody what we're doing here today and how they can have their say, because I am dying to know how people feel. If they watched our live stream coverage of the debate last night, I want to know what you thought about the moderator, Tom Clark, who is a Liberal lobbyist, who once asked Justin Trudeau what his brand of shampoo is. What did you think? If you watched the debate last night, what did you think of Ezra's reactions? I got home late and I was like, I really should be going to bed. It's 12:30. But no, I thought I would stay up and watch Ezra's reactions to Tom Clark. So that was fun too. So if you watch those, people in viewerland, let me know. And here's how you can do that. So we are live streaming on YouTube. However, there may, and we're pretty safe today, but we might come a time where we have to cut the YouTube feed because we sort of dance up against YouTube's censorship restrictions and we can't talk about certain things. And one of those is the advice of a local public health officer. They're basically like the Pope. You cannot blaspheme against them. But we are also streaming on Getter. So if you're watching us on Getter, nice to see you. But if you want to have your say and support the work that we do, head on over to Rumble, Odyssey, and Super U. You can leave us a paid chat on each one of those platforms. Rumble is a rant. Odyssey is a hyper chat, and Super U is a shout. Send those. Ms. Producer Olivia will send them to me in a message, and we'll do our best to address your question, your comment, your story idea, or your viewer feedback on air. And it's, you know, a way that you can have your say because we're not the mainstream media. We actually want to hear from you, and you can support the work that we do completely of your own free will. Getting back to Tom Clark. Why don't we show, I'm sure we've showed it 100 times, but why don't we show, Olivia, I'm sort of putting you on the spot, the clip of Tom Clark when he had Justin Trudeau stuck in an airplane with him. There was no way that Justin Trudeau could escape. So now's your time to ask him hard questions. What is he going to do? Jump out the window? But no, this is what Tom Clark thought the nation wanted to know. Why don't we roll that? So we know that we should have known better. Not we, I mean, this is what we should have expected from Tom Clark. It played out exactly the way most of us thought it would. Thinking people, I think.
So I guess the first thing I should ask you is, are you feeling lucky? I mean, the entire country wants to know. What shampoo do you use?
What a disappointing answer this is going to be. Whatever happens to be hanging around at the time.
So I guess the first thing I should
I don't know. It's not that great. Anyway.
I was thinking that, is it the same way that they handle the democracy? Everything that is like passing through, I'm just having a hand on it.
Yeah. That's Tom Clark when he gets a chance to ask the Prime Minister of Canada a question. What sort of shampoo do you use? Ridiculous.
But
so
seriously, yesterday, his question was not even like better than this one. I would say. I'm sorry.
That's what I mean. Like first of all, this is Alberta. This is one of the rare places in the country where we have a lot of conservative journalists. And I'm not even pointing at Rebel News. There are a ton of us out here, particularly in Calgary. But we've got a lot of actual conservative journalists still working at mainstream media outlets. We've got Lauren Gunter. We've got Rick Bell. We've got Danielle Smith. There are people that they could have asked to come do this besides Rebel News. There are people, even if the party was interested in flying somebody in, bring in Rex Murphy, right? Or Conrad Black or somebody like that. But no, they fly in somebody who is paid by the Liberal government to select people to go on the CBC board to ask questions that he thinks Alberta conservatives want answers to. Very disconnected. I don't know who's responsible for that within the party, but huge mistake. Huge mistake. And it went over like a lead balloon in the room. He was booed. People got up and left. The questions were awful. Like, what did I find out yesterday? Am I the only conservative in the country who doesn't like jazz? I think so. Because 3 people on the stage, I think, when Tom Clark asked them, what music are you listening to? And they're like, somebody said jazz? Like, I want to know about policy stuff. I want to know what distinguishes them from each other. And I got to find out what they're watching on Netflix. By the way, the right answer is I'm campaigning. I don't have time to binge a Netflix series. That's the right answer. Like, okay, Olivia, I know I'm talking too much. I'm like Tom Clark at this point where it's all about me. We've got Olivia's got a montage that I think our friends at True North put together of all the dumb questions from Tom Clark. It's bad.
With Mr. Charest. And Mr. Charest, the very first question I have for you is, what book are you reading now?
What
book are you reading now?
Oh,
Mr. Aitchison, I wanted to ask you and give everybody a chance. There's a question and there's a twist to the answer. I want to know who your political hero is, and you cannot say Winston Churchill. Thank you all very much. That was actually really interesting to hear all that.
It wasn't.
Dr. Lewis, I'm going to start with you, and then of course everybody else gets a chance. I know you're all busy. I know that you've got stuff that you're doing right now, but when you have the opportunity to sit down and listen to some music, what do you listen to?
I would say...
I want to go to a question maybe a little more lighthearted, getting to know you a little bit more. And there are a lot of people who want to know this. It's not just me, trust me. But Mr. Baber, what was the last thing that you binge watched on TV?
Who wants to know this?
What historical figure from any time, anywhere, would you most like to have dinner with?
Seriously, this is I don't know if I say an insult or something like that, but the fact that they did an innovation at the beginning for this journalist, that it was supposed to be one of the biggest and one of the most known, and for his question and for his job, his career, and I result with this kind of question. I was just like, really?
Well,
I was like, this is actually not true.
And that's the thing. Given what he asked Justin Trudeau, did we think that this was going to go any different? And his questions, he makes it seem like actually anybody cares about this. Like, it's not just me who wants to know this. Other people want to know. No, they don't. No, they don't. I think that I'm pretty in tune with the average Alberta conservative. Nobody cares about that stuff. I want to know how you're going to get pipelines built. I want to know how you're going to fix equalization. I want to know how you're going to stop the gun ban. I don't care who he wants to have dinner with. I don't care what last show they watched. It's the last thing that anybody wants to know. And it's not what a debate is. A debate involves people arguing sometimes, talking about an issue, hammering it out, not doing this whole like dating game thing that they were doing.
But debate is supposed to be two or many candidates to explain their opinion together. But the fact is they were one after one and they were not almost allowed to talk to each other. So that is not a debate. This is just talking.
Yeah, it felt like, it didn't even feel like a job interview, because it felt like if this were a job interview, the questions would actually be relevant to the job that they were applying for. And in this case, they're applying for the job of prime minister at the end of the day. And I'm not sure why anybody cares. Like, what is the favorite color of the person who's running to be prime minister? And there were a few people who after the debate were, I think they maybe had had a few drinks, as you tend to do at these sorts of things. And they're like, yeah, he was fine. But more people were like, it was terrible. I ran into Pierre Poilievre's uncle and brother, who I immediately recognized, even though they were like, oh, you know, like, we're in the we are cheering for Pierre. I'm like, of course you are. You're his brother. You big sneaky guy. But even they were like, it was terrible. It was awful. They didn't get a chance to talk about the issues. They didn't get a chance to talk to each other. They didn't get a chance to distinguish themselves from one another. That's what debates are designed to do. We're all watching to find out, why are these guys different from each other? Why do I care about their TV shows? Like, why?
Because at the end of the day, when they will be prime minister, I don't care which book he's reading. I want to know how it will lead our country and solve our problem and do a better Canada. And his book that he's reading or the music that he's listening, that will not change anything on that.
Yeah. Now, I will give it to Pierre Poilievre when he was asked these questions. He was, because I think sort of he was the last person to answer, he knew what the crowd wanted to hear. For example, when he was, I forget his TV show or whatever, but I remember when he asked about what book is he reading right now, he said Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, which is right across on my shelf there. And when they said, you know, what music are you listening to right now? He said Paul Brandt, who is an Alberta country music star, who is also really involved in fighting human trafficking in Alberta. So he knew what the room wanted. So he's able to think on his feet and answer those questions. So good for him. But what a waste of everybody's time in the room. People paid $50, I think, to be there.
Oh my God.
What a ripoff, right?
I want my money back if I was there.
Yeah.
But I really like the answer of Pierre Poilievre about what he's listening. He said on Netflix, he's listening. It's like a documentary on communism. And it was actually something that he said that he was learning from how the people get a dictator and tyranny and some path that he wants to avoid and put it back from Canada. This is actually pretty bright answer.
Yeah. And I remember, I think it was Jean Charest when they asked him, oh, what book are you reading right now? And he's like, oh, a book on Russia, but I can't remember the title. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're reading the Reader's Digest large print edition. Now, at Rebel News, we have decided to send a message to the party, I think on behalf of the membership, because we're not stumping for a party here, but we think that it was a complete insult to the intelligence of Conservative Party voters yesterday, and also a bit of an insult to the very deep talent pool of Conservative journalists here in Alberta and in the West. They could have brought in somebody from Saskatchewan like John Gormley, long time conservative radio host there, universally liked in the conservative movement. He's very conservative, but not all that controversial. We could have brought in Dave Rutherford, another retired, long-time beloved conservative radio host here, but they didn't do that. And it was very insulting, not only to, conservative supporters, but also the people who have worked very hard to be conservative journalists and build a brand for themselves here in Alberta. So we have a petition. It's at noliberalmoderators.ca. You can go there, you can sign it. You can send a bit of a cheeky message to the organizers of the Conservative Party debates that what we saw last night was an absolute disgrace. It was everything we expected from Tom Clark, but it was sort of not expected from the Conservative Party. I expected better from them. They shouldn't be insulting their voters this way. He made a mockery, our petition reads, of the Conservative Party leadership debate in Edmonton. They should know better than to hire a pro-liberal moderator. Please sign our petition to make this a one-time occurrence. I have those times where you go to get your nails done or whatever, and The View is on TV, and you're trapped, and you're feeling like, what am I going to do listening to this for the next hour? That's how I felt last night, stuck in the room listening to Tom Clark, just getting stupider the whole time.
But I swear, I think the French debate should be more interesting because I don't know yet which journalist would be the moderator. But most of the time, they bring pretty important topic on the situation. So we'll see how it goes. Unfortunately, you will not be there.
Yeah, it's too bad. You're going to do a great job, though. You're going to do a wonderful job covering that for us. And I know you're going to ask tough questions. And you're not going to take no for an answer, or I won't answer for an answer from the likes of Jean Charest. I'm sure of it.
I was surprised that he was answering to Adam Sauce. I was like, whoa. But we saw his face at the beginning. I was like, oh, he do his face as usually, like this kind of face of, oh, no.
Well, and we did ask him about Huawei, and Adam asked a great question. He put it to him saying, knowing now what we all know about Huawei, can you at least say that maybe you regret working for them? And he still wouldn't say it.
No.
And that was an easy question. That's, you could easily say, yeah, I guess when I was working for them, I didn't realize that they were part and parcel of enforcing the social credit system. If I had known that, I would not have worked for him. That's a fair answer, but he couldn't say that. I guess he likes his money more than he likes his ethics.
No, I know Jean Charest was my premier for like 9 years. He would never play that it was wrong on something. Yeah. Never.
No. And our team, our little tiny team of 4 journalists, we've got 6 questions to the candidates, which I think was great. I think it was more than anybody else. We asked a bunch of questions that conservatives, I think, want answers to. Celine, who's an intern who joined us during our convoy coverage, she asked the first question out of the media scrum on gun rights, which I thought was great. Maybe we have a clip of that.
Hi, Mr. Aitchison. Celine Gallus for Rebel News. The Liberals have imposed a backdoor gun registry through an order in council which changes regulations to require retailers and sellers to collect data on purchasers. New rules come into force May 18th. Will you commit to repealing these?
I will. Canada has among the most regulated firearms industry in the world. The problem that we have in this country is the issue of illegal guns coming across our border and getting into the hands of gangs. That's a much more difficult challenge to deal with. And you see the Liberals time and again using firearms and legal law-abiding firearms owners in this country as a whipping tool to try to lather up their base and generate votes while not dealing with the real issues. It's the wrong approach for Canada. What we need to do is address the real problem, not demonize law-abiding firearms owners.
Hi, Mr. Aitchison.
I think she did a great job.
It's actually true what he was saying. It's like the black market and the guns that are coming up that is not registered that we need to be careful of and ban from Canada, not the registered one that actually make their proof, pass their courses for having it.
Yeah. Well, and it's interesting because I think this sort of brings us to some other news, although maybe I'm not sure if we need to be done talking to the debate quite yet. But one of those ways that the guns get into the country are through Canada's completely porous open border. And I think Quebec is acknowledging that this is a problem. And they've asked for Roxham Road to be closed because the province can't handle this influx of refugees spawned by Justin Trudeau's, I think it was 2017, Welcome to Canada tweet. He was sort of virtue signaling because Trump cracked down on illegal immigration and issued a travel ban from 6 failed states where you couldn't confirm anybody's identities. And the mainstream media called this a Muslim ban. That wasn't it. And so you've done some great reporting on this, just how easy it is to get a person into the country. So it's pretty easy to get an illegal firearm into the country. And that is where the majority of our gang-related firearms crimes are being facilitated.
Yeah. So it happened yesterday. They did talk about Roxham Road most of the day, and especially at the National Assembly. Mr. Legault went out to say that now they increased to almost 100 illegal immigrants per day, and that's mean that we will reach about 36,000 illegal immigrants at the end of the year. That represents 92% of the immigration year. And so Quebec cannot afford with the social, like the welfare, and especially with the health system, and especially for the lodging, because now the lodging is almost at the top capacity for them. And it costs a lot for Quebec because they enter in our province. Of course, for the lodging and for some other things, the federal is paying for. But a big part of it is Quebec, and Quebec cannot follow up with their mental health issue and some helping issue. Some of them need to have support to, like, it's not everybody who are ready to, okay, I'm in a new country, I can find a place to stay, find a job to stay too. And I was talking with some of them yesterday as well. Some of people were hanging out in the park, and what they were saying is like, the first trial that they receive is not because they've been arrested. The first trial is for their brown card, for having the residency for 4 years. And one of them said that I will be heard in 4 years.
Yeah.
4 years. And so what Legault was explaining is like the federal take too much time to receive them and heard their story, that they just see after more than a year. They say that usually it's minimum 14 months to heard one of these seeker of asylum. And they realized afterwards that they were not running away from their country, or they were not seeking asylum from their country because of the war or danger. They were just going in the country because they say that Canada was safe and good living. That's it.
Well, and you think about the other ramifications a little bit down the road, but not too far off. This is going to cause a housing crunch in Quebec. You just can't have people flooding in if you don't have houses to put them all in, and everybody needs a place to live. And if market supply is not keeping up with the demand, it's going to drive the cost of housing through the roof in Quebec. And
especially you have some regulation that you cannot build where you want, and they have a restriction on how many houses that you can build per year. And I know that close where my moms live, no house is permitted anymore to be being built, same if they have land. So the big problem is we cannot build more, but we receive a tons of new people who coming in, and so the price is increasing, and so people cannot afford it anymore, and so people need to share some apartment all together. So I don't think it's really healthy for a country, but as well for our province.
It's just, you know what, you can't talk about inflation without talking about immigration numbers. And that's legal immigration numbers. But it's even worse when you couple it with the illegal migration numbers. Canada lets in, I think it's 300,000 immigrants a year. So
Yeah.
get in the line. Don't walk in the back door. And then 4 years to get a hearing. A lot can happen in 4 years. Perhaps you have a child on Canadian soil and they become your sponsor.
So it's why it's like, it's incredible when I was just listening what they were telling me. And I asked them, did you been scared to be arrested by police? You know, you enter in the country and you get arrested. They were, no, not at all. I was like, okay, so you knew already that you were safe crossing and being arrested.
Wow. Now, I want to move to something else that's happening in Quebec. If people want us to continue talking about the debate, let us know in the chats. But Quebec, I just saw this from Global News. Quebec lost almost $1 billion on COVID-19 protective equipment, says the Auditor General. So it sounds like Quebec's unpreparedness and its delayed reaction to the COVID-19 pandemic led to the province losing almost $1 billion on its procurement of personal protective equipment. The government waited too long and then rushed into purchasing items such as masks and gloves at a higher price. By the end of March 2021, the value of equipment purchased by the province had dropped by $938 million. Of that amount, the province lost $671 million on the value of its stockpile, and another $267 million connected to contracts for equipment and prepaid orders. And I think this just goes hand in hand with the overwhelming amount of deaths that Quebec saw in its nursing homes, both in private facilities, but also in public facilities. I looked into this number, because every time you hear about this sort of stuff, you hear the public sector union saying the problem is private health care. The private health care agencies didn't take care of the people in the nursing home. So I went back and looked at the numbers and I'm like, no, the death rates are actually comparable. And I think a lot of that has to do with the supplies not being there and people also being much more scared of the disease than they needed to be. So they didn't show up to work. Yeah. They confined old people into their rooms when they should have just treated them as though they caught a bad cold or a flu and treated them that way. Instead, we treated them like they were a biohazard event, and the outcomes were terrible.
Yeah, don't forget that Quebec had the most money spent on COVID advertising, fear, propaganda. And as well as you know, in the healthcare facility, the long-term one, at the beginning of March, they were actually writing to the government saying, we have no staff to take care of the people. It was like an alarm, like bell, but nobody did nothing. And it's why, like, our death rate is the highest one in Canada. We have the worst like data, and we had the most like strict COVID-19 measure.
Yeah, I mean, it's just shocking how now they say the government has launched a few lawsuits to sue against the price gouging that they experienced, but they didn't even start bulk purchasing supplies until like the end of March, approximately a month after their first diagnosed COVID case. But again, this goes back to the whole planning for a pandemic. This didn't just happen in Quebec where nobody was prepared. I think we were a little better here in Alberta, but the Public Health Agency of Canada, they didn't have supplies. They closed a warehouse in Saskatchewan and threw out everything that was in there because it was expired. Well, you can still use expired rubber gloves in a pinch. It's not like milk, right? Like you could still use expired gowns. You know, it's not ideal, but again, it's not like a dairy product. It's not going to go sour. It just, just sometimes you have to be more careful about degrading, but it's better than nothing. But with the Public Health Agency, they literally were left with nothing when they're like, oh, expired, let's throw it all out. Close the warehouse and never stock it back up. And it seems like a lot of that happened in Quebec too.
Yeah, I just wanted to know that I help in the healthcare facility at the beginning of the pandemic because I just wanted to give help, and the mass was really they were counting it. Like I had the permission to take 2 per day because after a while the mask is not efficient at the jobs if it's humid or anything, so you need to change it. But I was just allowed to have 2, not more.
The whole day.
So they were keeping on key, like locking on a place.
Wow. It sounds like we've got lots of chats coming in today, which is great. Let's just move into more nonsense, and then we'll circle back and get to the chats. We've got this from Ziri.net. Can we bring that up? Because this is more of the war on motherhood. Anybody can be a mother, including a pregnant trans man, which if you are a pregnant trans man, I don't care what your exterior looks like or how you feel, you are still biologically a woman, because it is the female of the species that carries the offspring. So we've got this one. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because this sort of nonsense came up in the debate. We've got pregnant trans man stars in a Calvin Klein's Mother's Day campaign. First of all, okay, if this is a man, then why is this man taking over a female-only space Mother's Day? Where are the feminists on this issue if this person is a man? But it sounds like we're conceding this person is actually a female, like just a female with a male-looking exterior. As part of Mother's Day in the United States, Calvin Klein launched a campaign that went viral on social media. Yeah, I bet it did. So they show a photo of Roberto Bete, I think I'm saying that right, a pregnant trans man who's about to give birth to her baby Noah, along with her partner, Erica Fija, a transgender woman. Yep. I don't even know what's going on here, but I don't know. I'm a little bit speechless. Why do we have to just leave Mother's Day alone? You're having a baby. Obviously, everybody still has their lower bits, as though I care. I don't care about any of this stuff, but why is this a major ad campaign on Mother's Day for underwear? It's just like, it's just controversy for the sake of it.
But my only problem is like, I have nothing against that. Like, it just,
I don't care. Live your life.
Yeah, exactly. But for an advertising, and especially like some children who doesn't know what is a transgender and say that, what? Oh, men can have a baby now? Like, with the innocence, they will say, oh, so the little boy will say, oh, maybe one day I will have a baby. No, it's not working like that. I'm sorry. You have a trick there. It just make me feel like children are so innocent when they think it's always so pure, and introducing some idea that maybe you as a man, you can probably have been like pregnant one day, because they don't realize that, oh, it's a woman, but I look like a man. I don't know. It's just not something that I will probably present in a big advertising.
I just think it's so, I don't know. It just, I think leave Mother's Day for women. And if you are a man who's carrying a child, I think you might actually be a woman too. And that's okay. Look however you want, but let's not pretend that you're not a woman. Well, it's none of my business, but let's not pretend that you are not a woman. And the reason I bring this up, because Mother's Day, I think, should be a women's only space. We can move into this article from True North, because another women's only space is being invaded by men. Feds have formalized a policy to allow biological males to serve prison sentences in women's prisons. And this means that there will be no segregation of people who still have their biological male parts, they will be allowed in the general female population in these prisons.
Really?
And yes, and this, David Menzies has covered this. Protests outside women's prisons by old school feminists who are saying, you can't take a woman out of society, put her into the care and control of the state, and then not at least do your best to keep her safe. And the thing about women, or many of these women who end up behind bars, a lot of them have suffered sexual violence. A lot of them, they've suffered sexual violence as children that takes them into a life of criminality and prostitution and drug abuse and the societal decay that surrounds their life because of those things. Many of them end up being sex trafficked. And that I'm not excusing their crimes, but I am explaining how they ended up on the path they ended up on. Mm-hmm. So then to put them in prison with men, where they're confined with men, this is not how we should be dealing with this. This is some of David Menzies' prior footage. He actually had a person there who was transgender who said that you can't be doing this. You just cannot be putting people who are still biologically male in with the women in the prison. It's unsafe.
Yeah.
Alexa, what do you think?
I think I kind of agreeing, because some of the women, psychologically, they are affected by, what do you say, being raped or being victim of sexual abuse, and not being secure and thinking that maybe have some men under a female figure. I think it can be more stressful, and that can bring a lot of consequences in the illness of the mental issue. So I don't think for the safety, especially because we never know, okay, I can understand that some people would say that, but if they are in transition to be a female, they are not probably interested on female. No, that's true. It can be on woman or man side, what do you like? So we don't know how they can react in jail when they have no sex at all. So for me, just we should separate by the natural sex, biological sex.
Yeah, and in this True North article, they raise another issue here that I think is really important, because there are people also besides the female offenders that are being imprisoned with, potentially these could be formerly male sex offenders, by the way. Mm-hmm. So these could be men who committed acts against children, then they get into the prison system, then they transition, and then they get housed in a women's facility. So that does happen. I think just a couple of weeks ago, there was an offender who had gone that same route, who then had impregnated another inmate in the prison where he was being housed. But there's somebody else that we need to be concerned about in all of this, and that is the prison guards. Because by and large, prison guards at women's facilities are women, because we kind of acknowledge that you don't want male prison guards in a position of power that can be abused. So by and large, they're female. But now you've got female prison guards. And usually women's prisons are lower security. The guards generally don't have weapons the same way that they would have in a male facility. And this is one of the reasons why some of these male malingerers want to be transferred into the female prisons. It's a lot easier to go to a female prison, get a little bit more freedom. There's not that level of aggression, and women generally commit different crimes. So they're not often the same sort of violent criminals that men are. But the prison guards are largely women. They're smaller, and they don't have weapons. The facility has different security protocols that are a lot less than what you'd see in a male, min to max security prison. And so it becomes now dangerous for the female guards to deal with men who have transitioned to female, because they are also bigger than the guards now.
It's a little bit as the swimmer that changed on the woman's side that was almost sure to win, but now it's like being sure to be more easier for the jail for them.
Yeah, this is just, I think it's just awful. So they've adopted an interim policy. This is from the True North article, to place inmates in the prison of their choice, regardless of their anatomy or gender on their identification documents, unless there are overriding health or safety concerns which cannot be solved. So I guess until they prove themselves to not be a problem, they get to be whatever they feel like. And it doesn't matter. They don't have to live like it beforehand. This can be something that they get convicted of murder and they say, oh, you know what? It's a little bit more comfortable to be serving out my 10 years to life in a ladies' prison. I guess I'm a lady now. And that's going to happen. It does happen. It's terrible.
Yeah. I'm not agreeing with the fact to let that go, but who decide at the end?
Trudeau. This was a Trudeau announced policy in 2017. So I don't know why. I don't know why he made this his hobby horse, but apparently it is. And for a feminist, a self-avowed feminist like Justin Trudeau, he is putting vulnerable female offenders who are in care and control of the country, the state, he's risking their safety now to just, I guess, prove a point, to prove how tolerant he is. You see, he gets to do these sorts of stuff because he has very low liability in all of this. It's not his safety being endangered. It's not the safety of his wife being endangered. It's not the safety of his daughter being endangered, but it is the safety of somebody else's daughter being endangered. And that's the problem here.
I agree. Totally.
Now, while we have you, Quebec-based story, Francois Amalega?
It's really complicated.
Tell me how to say that.
Because he's from Cameroon, so his name is actually Amalega, and his family name is Francois. But everybody say Francois Amalega because Francois is more used usually as a name. It's a
first name. Yeah.
Yeah, but for him, it's his family name. But it's kind of confusing. So it's why some people call him Amalega, some people call him Francois. So he know that. So it doesn't bother him at all. That was a really, really strange a story. He's a freedom fighter. We can compare him as Chris Kyle for the rest of Canada, English Canada, but he's based in Montreal, Quebec. So he's known since the beginning of the pandemic. He's a mathematics teacher. He always been a quiet person, but when the pandemic hit, he saw the right and the freedom of the people getting away. So he raised his voice and he went to take back the freedom and the right of the Quebecer, but as well the Canadian. And so he did a lot of movement where he was not wearing a mask. He received a lot of tickets, a lot. We talk about 60, 70. I don't count anymore. But recently he went to see the Prime Minister and he just questioned him. He didn't be violent. He just raised his voice a little bit saying like, are you stupid or incompetent to talk about the economic relents when you see your people being ostracized still by the vaccine passport? After that, he got arrested. He had like some condition to not be close from the Prime Minister. We call Prime Minister in French, but he's the Premier of Quebec, for not being close to 300 meters. But afterwards, he went to protest at Radio-Canada CBC because our Premier was there for a recording of a show. So he got arrested that time. It was the 16th of January. And he never get released until the 9th of May. So he spent almost 4 months in jail, waiting for different trial that he had. most of them he have been played on guilty, so he was found on guilty. Just one of them have been found guilty. But what he said to me when he were transferred from jail to jail in Trois-Rivières, it was really awful. So he stopped to eat for a week, saying that he wanted to be transferred to another prison. He filed a complaint against the jail where he was mistreated. They put in with like handcuff for the feet and handcuff between hand and feet, and they were like just carrying him like a little bit everywhere. This is what he said to me. It's like most of the canteen, like when you order some stuff, he never had it to him. They put in quarantine for more than the first time 14 days. They were forcing him almost to take the COVID-19 test, putting him again for 10 days of quarantine in a really small like piece. Everything like forcing him to wear a mask when he had the handcuff, putting in his face. And so for him, it was really important to be released without condition, because he was saying, I didn't do anything wrong. Right. I just disagree with what the government imposed to his citizen and stop the right and the freedom of their own citizens. So it was like, I didn't do anything wrong. I'm not going to be released with condition. It's why they kept him in jail for almost 4 months. But you have a rule that you cannot keep a prisoner more than 90 days when you know that the sentence will probably be less than that. So it's why they were probably obligated to release him at the end.
Oh, and what's shocking here is he's been completely peaceful. Completely peaceful. People who beat their wives, abuse their kids, steal from you, they don't get anywhere near the time that he got. And normally they get bail. All they have to do is go before a judge and say, I promise I won't do it again. And they get bail while they await trial. But not Francois. He was held as though he were, a serious risk to the community. But he's never been anything but completely peaceful. He's called for peace. I've seen videos where he's telling people, we have to be peaceful. We can't give them what they want from us. And I think that's why they had to get him off the streets and hide him away for 4 months, is because he's very effective in his message. So what's the best thing to do if you want to get somebody to shut up? Hide them away, put them in prison, I guess.
Yeah. And it's funny because what he was saying to me, say, I don't know what happened when I was in jail, but I started to receive a lot of ticket, with some ticket from other like previous protests, like some years ago, where he was not wearing a mask. And it was like, dude, they went to all my profile on Facebook and look at all the protests that have been that I was not respecting the rule. And they sent me like all these tickets that I don't even remember I was present that day. And I was like, how is it can be? And he say like he received tons of it, tons. And some of he received a ticket from the police because he stopped his car because the police stopped him. So he just stopped the car where he was arrested. And he got a ticket because he stopped at the wrong place.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I think so. I think it was you in one of your videos. He was at the time probably had $50,000 or $60,000 worth of fines. Does that sound right?
Now it's way more than that. So he actually say that he don't want to be really represented by a lawyer, because he said the justice is mostly all in the same package, because he say like if you want to be a lawyer you need to be vaccinated shot, all you can be straight to your head, all you can be objective on what is going on. And it was like, I know what I did, I know why I did it, and I think I'm the best one to talk about what happened that day and for which purpose I'm doing it. And some of the judge that he had when they released him they said, I'm so sorry you needed to pass through this time in jail for something that we cannot prove. And it's just so objective that we are sorry and we don't understand why they kept you in jail.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're doing this to all the high-profile objectors who are completely peaceful, like Pastor Art, like Pastor James Coates. Doesn't matter if you're bombastic and over the top or quiet and peaceful, like Tim Stevens or Francois. It doesn't matter, because in the end, your crime is the same. You didn't do what they told you to do. You chose to live your life the way you saw fit.
And what he was saying as well is but if you can see, they always take the talker one, the big speaker, they take it away from the crowd. So the crowd is not rising up as we saw with Tamara Lynch or other like a big leader as Prescar or whatever. When they were taking away the leader, they had less people in the street afterwards, less people raising their voice afterwards, because they take away the biggest masterpiece.
Yeah, it's true. Now, I know we have a ton of chats coming in today, and I think we have 9 minutes left in the show. So let's see if we can get to these. So Trini Canadian, she's a regular viewer and a regular donator to our streams. Appreciate her very much. Sorry, I'm shuffling around trying to find my glasses. Trini Canadian says, Tom Clark and the Conservative Party of Canada could take a few lessons on how to put together a debate from Avi and Rukshan on their debate in Australia. Well done, Avi. Yeah, Australia's in the middle of an election, and our team down there put together a debate, and thoughtful, and people actually got to talk instead of just the moderators. So that's cool. That's usually how it's supposed to work. Adam Ottawa gives us $1. The media party said the debate was vicious, though I thought it was pretty lame-o. The only thing vicious was how people reacted to Tom Clark because he was terrible. They booed him. Yeah. I've never seen a moderator booed. Like, he was booed as boisterously as Jean Charest was booed, which is probably, Jean Charest was probably grateful that there was somebody the crowd disliked more than him for what.
I agree with that.
Adam Ottawa also gives us $1, says Charade must live in a bubble. He claimed all sorts of falsehoods, convinced he's a plant. I feel like he's like Hillary Clinton, where he feels like this is just his turn. And so he's running because it's his turn to be in charge. He's going to lose too, like Hillary. Adam Ottawa gives us $1, says Brown is a liar when he said he was the most lockdown resistant. Yes, complete liar. He chained up the parks. He fenced off the playgrounds. He sent security guards to the cemetery to make sure that people were social distancing outside at funerals. He spent millions of dollars on this stuff. He was the worst, saying he was the most lockdown resistant. Yeah, maybe for himself when he was out playing hockey and all the kids were locked down. But generally speaking, he was one of the most pro-lockdown mayors in the entire country, given Calgary a run for their money. And he's also a liar when he said, I asked him, because it's a question that puts him out of step with the entire Conservative Party. I asked him if he's going to move the embassy to where it belongs in the capital of Jerusalem. And the reason I asked that question is because it shows how the whole party is over here thinking, yeah, you put the embassy in the capital. We don't let terrorists tell us what we do. And he's like, no, it's going to hamper the peace process if I move it to Jerusalem. I'll let him answer my question, and then I'll tell you why he's a liar and stupid. Hang on.
Was articulated under Stephen Harper's government, which was not to move the government, as it would make the peace process more difficult.
Sheila Gunn Reid, Rebel News.
Okay, that's fine.
Peace
the
process.
Reason, the peace. Okay, so yeah, but the thing is, Trump moved the embassy to Jerusalem, where it belongs, and then you know what Trump did? Signed a bunch of peace accords. They're called the Abraham Accords, and peace broke out in the Middle East. So everybody told Donald Trump, you can't move the embassy to Jerusalem because Because, by the way, that's the bigotry of low expectations, thinking the Palestinians can't behave themselves because the embassy moved. That's bigotry. I think they can. And I know they did, because Trump moved the embassy to where it belongs. The Canadian Conservatives have a long-standing pro-Israel stance because it's this little beacon of democracy surrounded by terror. And when Trump moved the embassy, nothing happened. Peace broke out in the Middle East. Why wouldn't he be in lockstep with the party on that issue? I have my suspicions. Anyway, but yeah, he said it would hamper the peace process. The exact opposite happened when the Americans did it. The exact opposite. Peace broke out for once. Anyway, let's keep going. Adam Ottawa says, I actually like Baber, I think is how I say it. Not sure if he's ready to be leader, but he's genuine and he knows the real issues. I think he's sincere. You know, you can sort of tell when politicians are telling you what they think you want to hear, but you're not sure if they actually believe it. I fully believe Roman Baber believes the things that he says. And I don't take umbrage with him on maybe one policy issue. But I think he is a decent, genuine human being who actually tells you what he believes, which is kind of rare in politics.
The only problem, I really like him, but I find him that, I don't know, not even enough strong, like, is not enough, like I would say maybe aggressive or anything. He's always keeping like quiet in his own bubble, and when he have the right to talk, he take it, but he never go away when you have something that he really believe that he wants to say. He's not overly aggressive on the stage. He's sort of calm. Aitchison is like that too, although I think Aitchison is kind of annoyed with the whole process. That's the vibe I get from him. But I think it's just his personality. He's not a bombastic, aggressive person. He's just sort of a quiet communicator. I do like Roman Baber. I sure do. Yeah. World's Worst Gamer gives us $1. I am not free. I never was. Adam Ottawa gives us $2. The moderator was so concerned about time discipline, but spent a lot of time on their personal interests like books and mainstream broadcast TV. Isn't that true? It was like a 90-second preamble from Tom Clark before he gave the people 15 seconds to answer his stupid question nobody wanted to hear anyway. It was the Tom Clark show. It was a promotion for a TV show and a book show.
Yeah, I think Tom Clark wants to be back on TV. Like, he wants to host a variety show with politicians. Cheryl Dawn V gives us $1. Excuse me, candidates, the last thing you ate in the color of your underwear, what is your stripper name? Yeah, I asked Pierre Poilievre's brother what his favorite flavor of ice cream was. I'm like, let's pretend for a minute I'm Tom Clark. What's your favorite flavor of ice cream? It's boring. Who cares? Jeffersonian Patriot gives us $5. If they watch Netflix with its past pedophile problems, then that's a concern. Look, sometimes I watch Netflix too.
Me too.
There's some things on there that I want to see. I just don't watch those things that I think are gross. And there's plenty of things on Netflix where I'm like, I never want to watch this. Never. Like, who's that awful, boring female comedian? It doesn't matter. Nobody knows anyway because she's boring and unfunny. But I never watch her stuff. Not Hannah Gadsby. Thank you, Olivia. Who's the other one? She's blonde. It doesn't matter. Amy Schumer. Thank you.
I like her.
Do you? If I commit a terrorism offense and I get sent to Gitmo, you can torture me with Amy Schumer sets because I find her just insufferable and boring. It's hard to watch.
Oh no, it's just sometimes like I find that her joke is kind of funny.
Oh, you know what? That's the thing. There you go. There's stuff on Netflix for everybody. Adam Ottawa gives us $1. If you have to tell people what color their tie is, you're not real. Yes, I'm talking about Sheree. AMT 60, $1. I'm more concerned about the World Health Organization Pandemic Treaty Conference, May 22nd to 28th, where the 193 countries vote on whether the World Health Organization could take control of any country, pandemic response, and sovereignty given up. Yeah, that's a real concern. And then, when people ask about, like, what about how much we are being World Health Organization compliant, certain members of the Conservative Party say that's a conspiracy theory.
Mm-hmm. Oh, we saw that, huh?
Yeah,
From
exactly. So your friend.
Yeah, I would say my friend, but he's not.
Yeah. Yeah, they say this stuff is a conspiracy theory, but it's definitely not. And we should be concerned, even at the most basic level, when the World Health Organization is credibly accused of basically being butt kissers to China and covering up for China all the time. And then we have Theresa Tam as one of the 7, I think, advisory board members. And she's also the chief medical officer of our country. Makes you wonder, is she doing what's in the best interest of the World Health Organization, which is, on its knees for China, or is she doing what's in the best interest of Canada? And I think if you really take a look at the decisions that she's made, she's really not examining the evidence as it unfolds in Canada. She's doing something completely different. Ian Black gives us $5. I'm slightly interested in what the mainstream media are saying about the debates last night, so I'm happy to pay you to watch just so I don't have to. Okay, I will watch because I am curious.
Okay,
because that was one of my questions. That was one of my questions I wanted to ask to the people after the debate, but as it turns out, everybody was so bored they just went home to bed. By the time we were done this scrum, everybody was gone. Like 500 plus people had just been like, I'm out of here. I have all the Tom Clark I can take. And they left. And usually people linger around and visit and network and talk and have a drink. They were all gone. We did a half an hour of scrum and it was like tumbleweeds rolling through the building. Everybody had gone home. And I wanted to ask them who they thought won because I wanted to compare that to who the mainstream media will say won. It's like sometimes we're watching the same thing, but they may as well be watching something completely different.
So I would probably need to do the live stream after the French debate to recap what people have said during the French one.
Yes. Becca Henderson gives us $1. On Twitter, there have been pro-choice people shaming pro-life women who have had miscarriages and saying they purposefully caused their miscarriages. Heartless bullies and thugs. Oh, the loving left. We have wherever you fall down on this issue. Although I sort of wear my politics on my sleeve. We have teams covering the March for Life in Edmonton, Toronto, and Ottawa today. And the reason we're doing that is because it is our journalistic mission to tell the other side of the story. What many people don't know, and this is a failing of the mainstream media, the single largest demonstration in this country every single year is the March for Life in Ottawa. And you will not see it on the mainstream media. They won't tell you that it's overwhelmingly female. They will not tell you it is overwhelmingly young people. They will not tell you it is often overwhelmingly minority. I know it's like that in Edmonton. It's overwhelmingly young female minority. And yet the mainstream media will tell you it's old white men trying to control women's bodies. And that is not the narrative. So wherever you fall down on this issue, what you can agree with me on is that the mainstream media gets this completely wrong.
I agree with that because since I'm in Quebec, I never heard that we had really pro-life march before.
Yeah, it's, there will be maybe, I think it's tens and tens and tens of thousands, but I think some years it approaches 100,000 people in Ottawa. Wow. And the only thing you might hear the mainstream media talk about is the traffic snarl caused by it, but they won't ever even say it's because there are all these people saying we need a law that restricts this at some point. Because in Canada, we joined China and North Korea in not having a law that restricts it at any point during pregnancy. That's the one thing the mainstream media doesn't want to talk about either. They say, it's about people that want to control women's bodies. Sometimes it's people who say fully formed human beings are not created human by virtue of passing through the magical birth canal. At some point, maybe they are independent human beings from their mothers and they don't need the magical birth canal to turn them into a human being. There are those people out there too. So it's a very, it is dishonest reporting you will get from the mainstream media. But luckily enough, we've got teams in cities all across the country to bring you the other side of the story. GGCT $10. Just sending some love to you amazing ladies. Well, thank you so much. Thanks both for your great work. I did vote for Alexa as my favorite Rebel reporter. You know, a lot of people.
Thank you. Thank you.
I was the first loser behind Avi, but I was the best Canadian.
Yeah, exactly.
But I also I'm a bit of a ringer because I have 3 live streams a week. Plus, I frequently fill in for Ezra, and I have my own fully produced paywalled show, and I also do a video a day, and I also write articles. So you might be deluged with my content sometimes, so I end up being top of mind. I might not be favorite. I think I'm just top of mind, if you know what I mean. You're getting all the Sheila you can handle.
I think you're my favorite, though.
Get out of here.
Oh,
I'm not the person you have to talk about to get a raise. so you don't have to pretend. Okay, we've got Lisa Proust, the wonderful, amazing Lisa Proust. Good to see you around, Lisa. Gives us $10, says my 2 favorite ladies together live. It's a super special day. Love you both. She's just the nicest lady. Have you met Lisa?
Yeah, I met her. Yeah.
I haven't met her in person. Cindy,
she's lovely.
Yeah, that's what I hear. David Menzies speaks very highly. Cindy Mick 888 gives us $20. Well, that's so kind. Thank you. Love to see you both together. Yes, we should do this.
Thank
more
you.
often.
Yeah.
It's hard to get rid of David, but I can send him out on assignment a little bit more frequently on Thursdays. I have those powers. Fraser McBurney, our friend from Hamilton, gives us $5. I thought you would like to read without your glasses. LOL. That's why he always uses cap locks, and I always tease him about using cap locks. He loves his cap locks, but he's just been looking out for me all the time because I can't see anything. Albertan in awe gives us $5. Who's this idiot Tom Clark? Extremely poor debate, terrible questions, fire whomever hired him. What conservative agreed to his presence? Now, when I was talking to my friends in the Conservative Party yesterday, they said he did a really good job. I think it was in 2017, they said. And so maybe that's why they had him back, but I don't know. You're in Alberta. There's so many conservative journalists, and I'm not saying me. Get Danielle Smith, get, Rick Bell, get John Gormley to reflect the prairie, something. Could have done a better job than Tom Clark. It felt very colonial. It's exactly what Alberta Conservatives hate. We hate people from Ottawa and Ontario telling us what we're supposed to care about. And Tom Clark came and told us we care about TV shows. Anyway.
We should probably write to ask why they took the decision to take him as the moderator.
Yeah. I've got a video in me about this. Stay tuned, everybody. I feel like I have a lot to say. Fraser McBurney gives us $5. One question I would ask: when will you defend the Canadian borders by closing Roxham Road? Yeah. If we were able, the party said 1 question per candidate per outlet. So, we just had the questions that we had, but we had a whole list of questions. If we're able to ask questions, we could just hammered them with questions all night. One of them was Roxham Road. We wanted to talk about immigration levels versus inflation, because everybody's talking about inflation, but nobody talks about, well, we have to resettle 300,000 people every single year. Do we have the housing to do that? Maybe we'll slow down until housing catches up, so that people aren't priced out of the housing market in places like Toronto and Vancouver. And I'm not talking about, like old stock Canadians, as they say. I'm saying everybody. If you're coming in as a legal immigrant, thank you for coming in legally. I would like you to be able to buy a house too, but we can't do that when we're taking in so many legal immigrants every single year. It's something we need to talk about, and nobody is. And it's an issue that it doesn't matter if you vote NDP, Liberal, or Conservative. I think it's 2/3 of people say immigration levels, once you tell them what they are too high.
But we still have a debate to come, so stay tuned, everybody.
Yeah, that's a great question for you, especially given your proximity to Roxham Road. World's Worst Gamer gives us $1. If the Toronto Maple Leafs win the Stanley Cup finally this year, there will be world peace. I don't know, because David might get a little chaotic if that happens. He's been waiting for close to his entire life for the Toronto Maple Leafs to win the Stanley Cup. And boy, he'll be pretty darn very excited about that. We are 10 minutes over. I have some important work to do after this. Thank you so much, Alexa. Sorry.
No.
Okay. So I'm just going to wrap up the show, but stay with us because we have a really fun ad that the ladies from Misunderstood put together. So if you wouldn't mind sticking around for that, everybody who's watching. But I'll just wrap the show up now. Alexa, thank you so much for subbing in for David Menzies. You are fantastic. Our viewers think so too. That's pretty clear. Thank you to... Go ahead.
I had that we will be free in Quebec in 2 days. That is a really important day for us. No mask anymore.
Oh, so exciting. Not that you've been hiding your pretty face anyway. Thank you to everybody in the office who puts the show together and everybody on the web team and who works behind the scenes to make sure that there are clickable links for you to tune in to watch us, because that is a big job some days. And thank you, like I said, to everybody who tuned in. Thank you to everybody who contributes to keep the lights on here at Rebel News. There are a lot of chats today, a lot of comments about the debate, and people were very generous today. So maybe we should sub David out a little more often. Anyway, speaking of David, as David Menzies always says, stay sane.